All right, let's talk about responsibility with the Biden administration. So we have a clip from the other day. I think this is maybe 2 days ago. And Katie Britt is asking questions of Attorney General Garland relative to the security of Supreme Court justices. And you might remember that I think it was last year where we had the attempt on the Supreme Court Justice life. Plus, we had protests outside their homes. And here's Katie Britt asking questions of Attorney General Garland, basically with the point, were the U.S. Marshals told that they could not arrest the protesters? So here we go with Katie Britt.
Given the full authority to arrest people violating Section 1507, I would ask, will you take a look at these slides, these materials, dig into them? It is clear that these marshals were given directives that narrowed the scope. Of course, we all want the physical safety. The physical safety of our Supreme Court justice is paramount, and we thank you for sending those marshals there. 1507, though, actually is more all-encompassing than that narrowly tailored objective. And it says picketing or parading near a building or housing if you're doing it with the intent to interfere with, obstruct, or impede the administration of justice or influencing any judge in the discharge of his duty. It's clear when you look at these slides that the marshals were not given those directives. I would like for you to take a look.
And we are going to take a look at these slides in this video.
And if you agree with that statement, I'd like for you to amend your testimony to the Judiciary Committee.
Well, there's nothing for me to amend because, as I said, I've never seen those slides before.
I see nothing? Right, he doesn't want to see the slides. He doesn't want to see the slides. Katie Britt's going to send them to him.
I need to yield my time. It's clear the marshals were given a different directive, and I would ask you to look into that, please.
I will.
Oh, yeah, sure he will. Oh, yeah, I'll be right on that, Katie. Don't you worry. I'm going to be right on these slides. So we are right on the slides, courtesy of the Daily Signal. DOJ discouraged marshals from arresting illegal protesters at Supreme Court Justice's home, Senator Katie Britt. So we just covered that, but I want to actually get right into the slides that are provided here in this Daily Signal story. Here we go. Training slides. U.S. Marshals SCOTUS residence protective details. Now, apparently, Katie Britt has gotten these by some type of whistleblower. And the first slide says that protest is not synonymous with unlawful activity. Well, that's true, right? But just because you're protesting, it doesn't mean it's unlawful. Unless you're protesting in accordance with that law that Katie Britt just quoted. Because actually protesting and impeding in front of the Supreme Court's members' housing is unlawful. So if you're protesting at a Supreme Court justice's house, that is unlawful. So it is unlawful. Now, all protest is not synonymous with unlawful, but that particular protest is. The next slide, making arrests and initiating prosecutions is not the goal of their presence at the homes of the justices. Of course, making arrests should not be the goal. It's a byproduct of law enforcement. I would hate to think that any police officer anywhere goes out with the express purpose of just making an arrest. No. They go out there with the idea to protect the public, right? To protect and serve. An arrest is a byproduct of that. So avoid, unless absolutely necessary, criminal enforcement actions involving the protest or protesters, particularly on public space. Basically, these instructions are neutering the U.S. Marshals. Here's the next slide. Standing order. These goals are in standing order. Beyond which, the instructs marshals not to engage in protest-related enforcement actions, beyond which are strictly and immediately necessary and tailored. I mean, talk about handcuffing the cops, right? I mean, they're saying, don't don't do anything like an arrest unless you absolutely have to. Why? Well, if a bunch of protesters get arrested in front of Supreme Court Justice's home, that's not going to look good for the pro-abortion people, right? That's going to look really bad for the pro-abortion people. So somebody at the Department of Justice / U.S. Marshal's office trying to pull the reins back on the marshals that are on the ground, right? That's exactly what's happening. Man. Marshals are told to defer to state and local authorities, if possible, for enforcement actions. So, according to Garland, they can arrest whoever they want, but they should refer to local authorities. Well, make up your mind, really. This one here, slide number 4, discourages marshals from making arrests under the code that Katie Britt quoted by asserting that there may be First Amendment rights to harass the justice and their families, despite the clear language that asserts that the intent of influencing any judge language applies to criminal threats and intimidation, not protected activities. So there is some speech which is not allowed. It's not allowed on the first. And one of them is to threaten a Supreme Court justice. States that any arrest of protesters should be the last resort to prevent physical harm. And so I guess, as the assault, if someone walks up the driveway at that, you have to wait until they're like at the door to do anything if you're a U.S. Marshal. Man, you can't make this one up. I think this is the most damning one. Despite Garland's assertion that the Judiciary Committee, that the marshals on the ground have full authority to make arrests, this slide directed the marshals to coordinate with the relevant U.S. Attorney's Office. It states that it would be counterproductive for the marshals to make arrests on cases that the DOJ will not charge and prosecute. Well, this sounds like quite a dichotomy between this situation, especially from the DOJ, right? Because we remember that when we had January 6th, the prosecutor in that case, we want shock and awe, right? Remember the prosecutor said we're trying to indict as many people as possible. We want shock and awe. Here, if you want to protest in front of a Supreme Court Justice's house and even make threatening statements, apparently that's okay with the DOJ. They're not going to throw the book at you. They're not going to do shock and awe. They're going to kind of let it slide. Here it is in like an official statement. It's you hardly ever see this type of complete and absolute admission from a government that basically we're pulling back the reins on you. And you can also see these parallels with the Border Patrol. They're doing everything possible to pull back anything that the Border Patrol would do. The Border Patrol is doing the absolute least they can do. No offense to the men and women that are actually on the front line. This comes from above. But right now, the Border Patrol is effectively, like where I saw it, as I said earlier, they're lifeguards on the Rio Grande right now, for the most part. The only thing we can do to stop this is to win the election in 2024. Nothing else matters. That is the most important thing, is to win back the presidency, to change these policies. If that is not super crystal clear at this point, that we have to win the presidency in 2024, there is nothing else that's important. That is the only thing